Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Jack Vance stood at his easel, brush suspended in midair as he studied the canvas before him. The Charleston sunlight streamed through the tall windows of his studio, illuminating the swirls of color that represented the harbor at sunset. A masterpiece taking shape, though few would ever connect it to him, at least not yet. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the mansion. Mary was home. Jack set down his brush and wiped his hands on a cloth, smearing cadmium red across the fabric. He took a deep breath, steadying himself before heading downstairs. These days, each interaction with his wife felt like stepping onto a battlefield. Mary Whitmore Vance stood in the grand foyer, her designer handbag tossed carelessly onto an antique table that had been in her family for generations. She didn't acknowledge Jack as he descended the stairs. "How was lunch?" Jack asked, keeping his voice neutral. Mary glanced up, her practiced smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Lovely. Daddy says hello." It was a lie. Randall Whitmore had never said hello to Jack in all the years they'd known each other. Not sincerely, anyway. "I'm sure he does," Jack replied, the corner of his mouth twitching that Mary's phone buzzed. She checked it quickly, angling the screen away from Jack, something she'd been doing more frequently these past months. "I need to take this," she said, already moving toward the study. "Important charity thing." Jack nodded, watching as she disappeared behind the mahogany door. Their marriage had been cooling for years, but lately it had entered a deep freeze. He returned to his studio, his sanctuary in this house that had never felt like home despite the fact that he secretly owned it now, a fact that would come as quite a shock to the Whitmore family very soon. His phone rang. Jude Sutter, the only person who had stood by Jack through everything. "How's life with the aristocrats?" Jude asked when Jack answered. "Getting colder by the day," Jack replied, staring at his painting. "Mary's planning something. I can feel it. Any more intel on the Thanksgiving ambush?" Jack moved to his desk and opened his laptop. "Their guest list keeps growing. 20 of Charleston's finest now." "Perfect," Jude said. "Bigger audience for the show. You're still good for catering?" Jack asked. "Front row seat to the Whitmore family downfall? Wouldn't miss it," Jude chuckled. "The papers are all set too. Just waiting for your signal." Jack clicked through a series of emails, stopping at one from his attorney. "The eviction notice is ready. Once I sign on Thanksgiving, they'll have 30 days. There was a pause on the line. "You know, you could just divorce her without all this," Jude said, his tone serious. "Take the high road." Jack's jaw tightened. "The high road? Like when Randall tried to blacklist my work at every gallery in the South? Or when Celeste told everyone at her garden party that I was Mary's charity case? They've spent years trying to break me, Jude. They don't deserve the high road. Just making sure you're certain," Jude said. "Once this goes down, there's no going back. I've been planning this for 2 years," Jack said, his voice hard. "I'm certain." After hanging up, Jack returned to his easel. The painting was nearly complete, a Charleston sunset that would fetch at least $200,000 from an anonymous buyer. The irony wasn't lost on him. The Whitmores had spent years mocking his art career, never suspecting that his work now commanded prices that would make even their old money eyes widen. The door to his studio opened, and Jack quickly covered the canvas. Mary stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "My parents are hosting pre-Thanksgiving drinks tonight," she said. "I told them you'd be there." Jack turned, measuring his response. "Will I?" Mary's smile tightened. "It would look odd if you weren't, Jack. People might talk." "Heaven forbid people talk," Jack replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't start," Mary warned. "Just be there by 7. And wear the blue suit I bought you. It makes you look presentable." After she left, Jack uncovered his painting and added a final touch, a small, dark shadow falling across the bright harbor scene. A subtle hint of the storm to come. The Whitmore estate sprawled across 3 acres of prime Charleston real estate, its colonial architecture a testament to old Southern wealth. Jack pulled his car up to the circular driveway, noting the collection of luxury vehicles already parked there. The pre-Thanksgiving gathering was in full swing. He straightened his tie, not the blue suit Mary had requested, but a charcoal gray one of his own choosing. Small rebellions were all he allowed himself these days. The double doors opened to reveal Celeste Whitmore, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. "Jack," she said, her smile tight. "How nice of you to join us." Mary was beginning to worry. Was she now? Jack replied, stepping into the foyer. "I wouldn't want to cause her any concern." Celeste's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course not. Do come in properly. Randall is showing everyone his new hunting trophies." Jack followed her into the main parlor, where a group of Charleston's elite stood admiring mounted animal heads that Randall Whitmore had acquired from his latest safari. Mary stood beside her father, laughing too loudly at something he'd said. "Jack!" Randall's booming voice cut through the conversations. "There he is, my artist in residence." He chuckled, and several guests joined in. Jack smiled thinly. "Randall, nice collection. Did the animals put up much of a fight against your high-powered rifle and team of guides?" A tense silence fell over the group. Randall's face flushed slightly before he forced a laugh. "Sense of humor on this one. That's why we keep him around." Mary appeared at Jack's side, gripping his arm with painful pressure. "Darling, come meet the Hendersons. They've just returned from Paris." As she steered him away, her nails dug into his arm. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Making conversation," Jack replied calmly. "Isn't that why I'm here?" Before Mary could respond, Quinn Whitmore approached, drink in hand. Mary's younger brother had the same refined features as his sister, but years of entitled living had added a permanent smirk to his expression. "Jackie boy," Quinn said, slapping Jack's shoulder. "Painted any masterpieces lately? Or are you still working on those, what did that critic call them? Derivative attempts at relevance?" Blair, Quinn's wife, snickered beside him. "Quinn, be nice," she said without conviction. "Maybe Jack could paint something for the guest bathroom in our new beach house." Jack took a sip of his drink. "Congratulations on the beach house. Another gift from your father." Quinn's smile faltered. "Some of us know how to succeed in the real world, Jack. Not everyone can afford to play with paints all day." "Quinn," Mary interrupted. "The Mitchells are asking about your golf game." As Quinn and Blair moved away, Mary turned to Jack. "Please behave yourself. These are important people." "Important to whom?" Jack asked. Mary didn't answer, simply walking away to rejoin the group around her father. Jack watched as she effortlessly charmed everyone around her, the perfect Southern belle. It was the performance he'd fallen for 10 years ago, before he'd seen behind the mask. Jack moved to the bar and ordered whiskey. As he waited, he overheard Celeste speaking to another woman just around the corner. "Mary's been so patient with him," Celeste was saying. 10 years waiting for him to grow up and get a real career. If it weren't for the Whitmore name opening doors for him, he'd be painting houses instead of canvases. The other woman made a sympathetic noise. Will she finally cut him loose? "Thanksgiving," Celeste replied, her voice dropping lower. "Randall has it all arranged. The papers are drawn up. We thought it would be kinder to do it with family around to support her, and more witnesses to his humiliation." The other woman added with a laugh. Jack's hand tightened around his glass. So they'd moved up the timeline. This wasn't just divorce papers. This was a public execution of whatever reputation he had left in Charleston society. He took his drink and found a quiet corner to observe the room. Mary flitted from group to group, her laughter musical and false. Randall held court by the fireplace, speaking loudly about economic forecasts. Quinn and Blair whispered to each other, occasionally glancing Jack's way before laughing. The Whitmore family in all their glory. Not one of them suspected that Jack had been tracking their financial missteps for years. Not one knew that when Randall's bad investments had put the mansion in jeopardy, Jack had secretly purchased it through a shell company. Not one realized that their lives were built on the edge of a cliff that Jack was about to push them over. His phone buzzed with a text from Jude. "All set for T-Day. Paperwork ready. You good?" Jack typed back. Timeline accelerated. "They're planning to serve papers at Thanksgiving dinner." Jude responded almost immediately. "Good. More dramatic that way. You've got this, brother." Jack slipped the phone back into his pocket, a calm settling over him. Let them plot their little drama. His'll be the final act. "Penny for your thoughts." The voice belonged to an older, Gentleman Jack recognized as one of Charleston's premier divorce attorneys. Just admiring the gathering, Jack replied, "The attorney Hargrove or Hartwell?" Jack couldn't remember nodded. "The Whitmores certainly know how to entertain. I've been their family lawyer for 20 years. Must be interesting work," Jack said. "Indeed. Between us," the man lowered his voice, "I'll be seeing you professionally soon." He winked and moved away before Jack could respond. So Randall had already engaged his attorney. The pieces were falling into place. Later, as guests began to leave, Jack found himself cornered by Randall in the study. The older man closed the door, shutting them in together with the mounted heads of dead animals watching from the walls. "Jack, my boy," Randall began, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. "Let's have a man-to-man talk." Jack leaned against a bookshelf. "I'm listening." "You and Mary." Randall paused, seeming to search for words. "It was a good try, but we both know it hasn't worked out." "Do we?" Randall's expression hardened. "Don't make this difficult. Mary comes from a certain background, expects a certain lifestyle. You've had a decade to prove you could provide that, and frankly, you've failed." Jack met his gaze steadily. "And what lifestyle is that, Randall? The one where you're 3 missed payments away from losing this house?" Randall's face reddened. "That's a temporary cash flow issue. Not that it's any of your business." "You'd be surprised what's my business these days," Jack replied calmly. Randall set down his glass with a sharp click. "Listen here. Mary is filing for divorce. It's happening. You can make it easy or hard on yourself, but the result will be the same. The prenup is ironclad." Jack smiled slightly. "I look forward to Thanksgiving." Confusion flickered across Randall's face. "What?" "Nothing," Jack said, moving toward the door. "Just anticipating the holiday. So much to be thankful for." He left Randall standing in the study, bewilderment written across his features. Outside, Jack texted Jude again, moving pieces in place. They don't suspect a thing. The week before Thanksgiving brought a flurry of activity to the Whitmore mansion. Decorators arrived to adorn the house with autumnal arrangements. Caterers consulted with Celeste about the menu. Mary spent hours on the phone, confirming attendance with various socialites and business associates. Through it all, Jack moved like a ghost, watching and waiting. He spent most of his time in his studio, finishing paintings that would soon become much more valuable once his name was attached to them publicly. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Jack received an email confirmation that the final payment for the mansion had cleared. The property was now completely his, free and clear. He forwarded the notification to his attorney with a simple message: "Prepare the notices." That evening, Mary entered his studio without knocking, something she rarely did these days. "There you are," she said, standing awkwardly by the door. "We need to talk about Thanksgiving." Jack set down his brush. "I'm listening." Mary seemed to struggle with her words, unusual for someone normally so composed. "It's going to be a special day for the family," she finally said. "Daddy's invited some very important people, and you want me on my best behavior." Jack finished for her. Mary's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Exactly. No argumentative comments. No sarcasm about Daddy's business, no. Artist talk. Artist talk. You know what I mean. All that stuff about creative expression and the soul of your work. It makes people uncomfortable." Jack studied his wife, really looked at her. Once he'd found her beautiful not just physically, but in spirit. He believed her charm was genuine, her interest in his work sincere. 10 years had stripped away those illusions, revealing the calculating woman beneath. "I'll be there," Jack said, "and I promise it will be memorable." Mary looked relieved. "Thank you." "Wear the navy suit." "Of course," Jack replied, though they both knew he wouldn't. After she left, Jack called Jude. "You're still planning to come as part of the catering staff?" Jack asked when his friend answered. "Already got the uniform," Jude confirmed. "I'll be serving drinks and collecting evidence." "Make sure you're in the dining room at dessert," Jack said. "That's when it'll happen." "You're sure about this?" Jude asked, the same question he'd been asking for weeks. Jack looked at the painting before him, a stark, powerful piece depicting a house splitting in two, dark figures falling from its cracking foundation. It would be his first public work after the Thanksgiving reveal. They built their lives on lies. Jack said, "It's time they faced the truth." The day before Thanksgiving, Jack drove to his lawyer's office to sign the final paperwork. Eugene Mills had represented Jack for years, quietly managing his growing fortune while maintaining the fiction that Jack was struggling financially. "Everything's in order," Eugene said, sliding the documents across his desk. "Once you sign these, I can have a sheriff serve the eviction notices as early as Friday morning." Jack reviewed the papers. "And there's no way they can contest this?" Eugene shook his head. "The house purchase was completely legal. Your shell company bought it at a legitimate foreclosure auction. The Whitmores failed to make payments on a loan that Randall took out against the property. You're now the rightful owner, and you have every legal right to evict anyone you choose." Jack signed his name with a steady hand. "What about Mary's divorce filing? Based on what you've told me about their plans, they won't file until Thanksgiving. This eviction will hit the courthouse first thing Friday morning. By the time Mary's divorce paperwork is processed, she'll have no claim to the house or its contents." Jack handed the signed documents back to Eugene. "And the prenup? Ironclad, as you suspected. The infidelity clause is particularly strong. If you can prove Mary has been unfaithful, she forfeits any claim to your assets." Jack pulled out his phone and showed Eugene a series of text messages and photos he'd collected. "Will these do?" Eugene reviewed them, eyebrows rising. "More than sufficient. The tennis coach, really? Cliché, isn't it?" Jack said, pocketing his phone. "Thank you for everything, Eugene." The lawyer nodded. "I've represented a lot of clients, Jack, but I've never seen revenge planned this meticulously. Are you sure this is what you want? Divorce alone would free you from the marriage." Jack stood, straightening his jacket. "This isn't just about Mary. It's about all of them, the entire Whitmore family, and how they've treated me for a decade. They wanted war. I'm giving them annihilation." On the drive home, Jack stopped at a small jewelry store. He selected a small, elegant box the perfect size for the copy of the deed and eviction notice he would present to the Whitmores the next day. That night, Jack slept soundly for the first time in months. Across the hall, Mary tossed and turned, rehearsing her lines for the performance she planned to give. Neither knew that only one of them would succeed. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and crisp, sunlight streaming through the tall windows of the Whitmore mansion. Jack stood at his bedroom window, watching as catering vans pulled up to the service entrance. He spotted Jude among the staff, dressed in the uniform of the catering company, carrying trays of glassware inside. His phone buzzed with a text from Jude. "In position. Ready when you are." Jack replied, "See you at dinner." He dressed carefully in a steel gray suit that Mary had never seen before. Custom-tailored in New York during a trip she thought had been for a failed gallery showing. He selected a blood-red tie and matching pocket square, a warrior's color for the battle ahead. Downstairs, the house bustled with activity. Staff arranged flowers and polished silver. Celeste directed everything from the center of the foyer, clipboard in hand. "Jack," she said when she spotted him, "I'm surprised you're up so early." "Wouldn't miss today for the world," Jack replied, smiling pleasantly. Celeste studied him, noting the suit. "That's not the Navy Mary laid out for you. I decided to surprise her." Jack said. Celeste's lips thinned. "Today isn't about surprises, Jack. It's about family." "On that we agree," Jack replied, heading toward the kitchen for coffee. Mary intercepted him in the hallway, her expression tightening when she saw his attire. "That's not the suit I selected." "No," Jack agreed. "It's not. We talked about this," Mary hissed, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Today is important. More than you know," Jack replied. Mary looked ready to argue further, but was interrupted by the arrival of Quinn and Blair. Quinn wore a designer suit that barely concealed his softening physique, while Blair's dress cost more than many people's monthly income. "Sister dear," Quinn called out, arms spread wide. "Happy Thanksgiving." Mary's demeanor immediately shifted, her irritation at Jack replaced by affectionate greeting for her brother. "Quinn, Blair, you look gorgeous." Blair accepted the compliment with a practiced smile, her eyes sliding to Jack. "Jack," she acknowledged with minimal enthusiasm. "Blair," Jack replied. "Quinn, I trust the beach house renovations are going well." Quinn puffed up slightly. "Beautifully. We're adding a boat dock and extended patio. You should see the stonework, not that you'd appreciate craftsmanship of that caliber. You'd be surprised what I appreciate these days, Jack said. Mary quickly steered the conversation elsewhere. Blair, come see the table settings. I went with the theme we discussed. As the women moved away, Quinn leaned closer to Jack. Fair warning, brother-in-law. Today's going to be rough for you. Might want to have an exit strategy ready. He patted Jack's shoulder with false sympathy before following his wife and sister. Jack watched him go, a slight smile playing at his lips. Rough indeed, but not for him. The morning passed in a blur of preparations. Jack kept to himself, mostly observing as the Whitmore family orchestrated their grand event. Randall arrived around noon, immediately closeting himself in his study with a man Jack recognized as his attorney. WY 4 o'clock, guests began to arrive. Charleston's elite filed in, dressed in their holiday finest, air-kissing and handshaking their way through the foyer. Mary played the perfect hostess, introducing Jack as an afterthought when protocol demanded it. Jack, darling, she said, approaching him with an elderly couple in tow. You remember Judge and Mrs. Holbrook? Jack shook their hands. Of course. How are you both? Quite well, the judge replied, studying Jack with shrewd eyes. I understand you're still pursuing that art career. More successfully than most know, Jack replied. Mary laughed, a brittle sound. Jack has such dreams. Thank goodness for the Whitmore name opening doors. Isn't that right, darling? Some doors are worth closing, Jack said pleasantly. The judge raised an eyebrow, but Mary quickly moved the conversation along, steering the couple toward other guests. Jude caught Jack's eye from across the room, where he served champagne. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. Everything was in place. At 5:30, Celeste announced dinner. The guests moved to the dining room, where the massive table gleamed with silver and crystal. Name cards directed everyone to their seats. Jack, noticing he'd been placed at the far end, away from Mary, who sat beside her father near the head of the table. Before taking his seat, Jack retrieved the small gift box from his jacket pocket and placed it beside his water glass. A server, not Jude, offered wine, which Jack declined. He needed a clear head for what was coming. Randall stood at the head of the table and raised his glass. Friends, family, distinguished guests, welcome to the annual Whitmore Thanksgiving celebration. The table applauded politely. This year, we have much to be thankful for, Randall continued. Our businesses continue to thrive. Jack suppressed a smile at this first lie. Our family remains strong, a second lie, and we're blessed to share our good fortune with all of you. Glasses clinked as the guests toasted. Jack lifted his water goblet, catching Mary's narrowed gaze across the table. Before we begin this magnificent feast, Randall said, gesturing to the servers who began bringing in the first course, I'd like to say how proud I am to provide for those less fortunate. His eyes lingered on Jack for a moment. Not everyone is blessed with the business acumen or family connections to succeed in these challenging times. Some must rely on the generosity of others. Several guests glanced at Jack, understanding the implication. He kept his expression neutral, waiting. Dinner proceeded with multiple courses, each more elaborate than the last. Conversation flowed along with expensive wine. Jack spoke little, responding when addressed, but otherwise observing the complex social dance happening around him. After the main course was cleared, Celeste tapped her glass with a spoon. The room fell silent as she stood, a sympathetic expression fixed on her face. Before dessert is served, I'd like to say a few words, she began. Family is everything to us Whitmores. We support each other through good times and bad. She looked at Mary with practiced maternal concern. Today, we're grateful for new beginnings. Mary has decided to seek happiness elsewhere. A murmur ran through the guests. Mary dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, the picture of dignified suffering. Celeste continued, while endings are always sad, we know this is for the best. Some partnerships simply aren't meant to last, especially when ambitions and lifestyles are so mismatched. Jack felt all eyes turned to him. This was the moment they'd planned his public humiliation, carefully orchestrated for maximum impact. Mary stood, pulling an envelope from beside her plate. With measured steps, She walked to Jack's end of the table and placed the divorce papers before him. "I'm sorry, Jack," she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I've tried to make this work, but we both know it's over. I hope we can part as friends." The last word dripped with insincerity. From the corner of his eye, Jack saw Jude position himself near the dining room entrance, his phone discreetly recording. Quinn chose that moment to add his contribution. "Maybe you can sell your stick figures to pay for a motel room," he called out, provoking laughter from several guests. Jack didn't flinch. He looked at the divorce papers, then up at Mary, who stood over him, a cruel smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She thought she'd won. Slowly, deliberately, Jack pushed back his chair and stood. The room fell silent, guests eager to witness his humiliation. "You're right, Mary," Jack said calmly. "It is over." Relief flickered across her face, replaced quickly by suspicion when Jack smiled. "But before I go," he continued, reaching for the small box beside his plate, "I do have something for you too. Call it a housewarming gift." He held out the box to Randall, who sat watching with narrowed eyes. "What is this?" Randall demanded. "Open it," Jack suggested. "I insist." The room was silent as Randall took the box and removed the lid. His face drained of color as he pulled out the contents, an eviction notice taped to a certified copy of the mansion's deed, clearly showing Jack's holding company as the owner. "What the hell is this?" Randall sputtered, holding up the documents. "Exactly what it looks like," Jack replied. "An eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate, or sooner, depending on how fast the sheriff wants to move." Gasps echoed around the table. Mary snatched the papers from her father, her eyes widening as she read. "This is a joke," she said, her voice rising. "Some kind of forgery." "I assure you it's real," Jack said. "I purchased this house 2 years ago when your father's bad investments forced it into foreclosure. He took out loans against the property, then failed to pay them. The bank sold the debt to my holding company." Randall lurched to his feet. "That's impossible. I would have known." "Would you?" Jack cut him off. "Like you knew your financial advisor was embezzling from you, or that your business partner was diluting your shares. You've been bleeding money for years, Randall. Too proud to admit it, too arrogant to see the signs." The guests shifted uncomfortably, some beginning to whisper among themselves. This was not the entertainment they had expected. Mary lunged forward, her composure shattered. "You can't do this. This is my family home." "Was your family home?" Jack corrected her. "Now it's mine, and I've decided I don't want any Whitmores living in it." Quinn stood now, his face red with anger. "You won't get away with this. Our attorneys will." "Your attorneys will confirm everything I'm saying," Jack interrupted. "The purchase was completely legal. The eviction is valid. As of Friday morning, the utilities will be shut off. I suggest you start packing." Blair grabbed Quinn's arm, her face pale. "The beach house renovations, they're tied to our equity in this property." Jack smiled. "Yes, they are. I've already notified your contractors that funding has been suspended." Mary screamed, launching herself at Jack with outstretched hands. Jude stepped forward quickly, catching her arms before she could reach him. "Let me go," she shrieked, struggling against Jude's grip. Jack looked at her calmly. "Don't make this worse for yourself, Mary. There are witnesses." "You planned this," she accused, tears streaking her makeup. "All of it." "Yes," Jack admitted. "Just as you planned this lovely dinner to humiliate me publicly. The difference is my plan worked." He turned to address the stunned guests. "I apologize for the disruption to your Thanksgiving celebration. Feel free to finish your dessert, but I'm afraid the Whitmores will need to begin packing. Tomorrow will be a busy day." Mary finally broke free from Jude, grabbing her water glass and flinging its contents at Jack. He stepped aside easily, the water splashing harmlessly on the floor. "I'll ruin you," she threatened, her voice low and dangerous. Jack leaned closer to her, lowering his voice. "Good luck finding a lawyer with a mansion address on a hotel application." Her face crumpled as the reality of the situation sank in. Around the table, guests began to stand, making awkward excuses to leave. The spectacle had become too uncomfortable even for those who had come expecting drama. Randall slumped in his chair, staring at the deed in disbelief. Celeste pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, her carefully applied makeup unable to hide her shock. Quinn pulled out his phone, presumably to call his attorney, but froze when it buzzed with an incoming message. He read the screen, his face growing ashen. "What is it?" Blair demanded, grabbing his arm. "The bank," Quinn whispered. "They're calling in my loans. All of them. They say the collateral has been compromised." Jack watched as the reality of their situation descended on the Whitmore family. In a single evening, their carefully constructed world had collapsed. They were no longer the powerful, untouchable elites of Charleston society. They were soon to be homeless, their credit destroyed, their reputation in tatters. "Why?" Mary asked, her voice breaking. "Why go to all this trouble? You could have just divorced me." Jack studied her, remembering the young woman he'd fallen in love with a decade ago. That woman had been an illusion, a carefully crafted persona designed to trap a promising artist with connections to New York galleries that the Whitmores wanted to exploit. "Because you and your family spent 10 years trying to break me," Jack said quietly. "You mocked my work, undermined my confidence, isolated me from my friends. You cheated on me when my career hit rough patches. You plotted to humiliate me today in front of everyone who matters in Charleston." He picked up the divorce papers she'd served him. "I'll sign these, Mary, but I'll be filing my own countersuit citing your infidelity. The prenup is quite clear about what happens in that case." Mary's eyes widened. "You can't prove anything. The tennis coach has quite a loose tongue when he's drinking," Jack replied. "And you really should have used a more secure messaging app." As the remaining guests fled the dining room, Jude approached Jack. "Time to go." Jack nodded, then turned to the Whitmore family one last time. "I'll have my things removed tomorrow. I suggest you use the time to decide what you can fit into whatever accommodations you can afford." He walked out of the dining room, Jude beside him, leaving behind the ruins of the Whitmore dynasty. In the foyer, Jude handed Jack his phone. "Got it all on video. Clear audio, too." "Perfect," Jack said. "Send it to Eugene. He'll know what to do with it." They stepped outside into the cool November air. Jack took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. For 10 years, he'd endured the Whitmore's condescension and cruelty. Tonight it had ended. "You know they'll fight back," Jude warned as they walked to their cars. "Let them try," Jack replied. "Every document is legal. Every transaction was legitimate. I didn't steal their house. I bought it after Randall's financial mismanagement put it at risk. Still," Jude said, "they have connections in this town." Jack smiled, a genuine expression that had been rare in recent years. "So do I, as they're about to discover. The art world has been very good to me, Jude. Very good indeed." Behind them, the lights of the Whitmore mansion blazed against the darkening sky, a beacon of wealth and privilege soon to be extinguished. The morning after Thanksgiving dawned gray and drizzly, matching the mood inside the Whitmore mansion. Jack arrived early, accompanied by a moving crew and security personnel. He'd spent the night at Jude's waterfront loft, sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. As Jack's car pulled up to the house, he saw Randall standing on the front steps, his attorney beside him. Jack nodded to his own lawyer, Eugene Mills, who had arrived separately and waited by the gate. "Let's get this over with," Jack said, stepping out into the light rain. Randall stormed forward, stopping when the security guards moved to intercept him. "You won't get away with this," he snarled, his face blotchy with rage. "I already have," Jack replied calmly. "Eugene, please explain the situation to Mr. Whitmore and his counsel." Eugene stepped forward, opening his briefcase to shield the documents from the rain. "Mr. Whitmore, the eviction notice is valid and enforceable. Sheriff Donovan will be arriving at noon to officially serve it. However, Mr. Vance has generously allowed a moving company to help you relocate your personal belongings before that becomes necessary." "Generous?" Randall exploded. "He stole my house." "Purchased," Eugene corrected, "through completely legal channels after you defaulted on loans you secured with this property. All documented, all above board." Randall's attorney whispered something in his ear. The older man's shoulders slumped slightly. "The furniture, the art, those belong to the Whitmore family," Randall argued, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. "Actually," Eugene replied, Most items were purchased after the property transfer and are legally considered fixtures. However, Mr. Vance is willing to allow you to remove personal items and family heirlooms acquired before the transfer date. Jack stepped forward. 1 hour, Randall. You and your family have 1 hour to collect whatever personal items you can carry. The movers will handle the rest and deliver them to whatever address you provide. 1 hour, Randall spluttered. There are generations of Whitmore possessions in this house. You should have thought of that before you leveraged them against bad investments. Jack replied. Before Randall could respond further, the front door opened. Mary appeared, still wearing last night's clothes, her makeup smeared from crying. Jack, she said, her voice hoarse. We need to talk. Privately. Jack studied his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, noting the calculation behind her red-rimmed eyes. Even now, she was plotting. Whatever you have to say can be said in front of our attorneys, Jack replied. Mary glanced at the lawyers, then at the security guards and movers waiting by their trucks. 5 minutes, Jack. That's all I'm asking. Against his better judgment, Jack nodded. 5 minutes. Inside, he followed Mary into the house, signaling to Eugene to wait outside. The grand foyer already showed signs of hasty packing boxes stacked haphazardly, items pulled from shelves. Mary led him to the small sitting room off the main hall. As soon as the door closed behind them, her demeanor changed. How much? She asked, arms crossed. How much what? Don't play dumb, Mary snapped. How much to make this go away? To tear up the eviction notice and give the house back. Jack laughed, unable to help himself. It's not for sale, Mary. Not to you. Not to your family. Everyone has a price, she insisted. Name yours. Why would I sell something I've worked years to acquire? Jack asked. The house is mine now. Legally, legitimately mine. Mary's expression softened suddenly, and she stepped closer. We could start over, Jack. You and me. We had something good once. Jack stepped back. Are you serious? After everything you've done? People make mistakes, Mary said, reaching for his hand. I made mistakes. I see that now. But we could try again without my family's interference. Jack pulled his hand away. Even now, you're lying. Even when you've lost everything, you're still trying to manipulate me. Mary's face hardened. You'll regret this. My father. Your father is broke, Jack interrupted. His businesses are failing. His investments have tanked. The only thing of value he had left was this house. And now, that's mine too. You've been planning this for years, Mary accused. Yes, Jack admitted. Ever since I overheard you and your father discussing how to break me, how to take my art connections and discard me once you'd squeezed every benefit from our marriage. That was 3 years ago, Mary. 3 years of watching, waiting, and building my case. Mary's eyes widened with realization. The anonymous buyer. The one purchasing your work for those ridiculous prices. That was not me, if that's what you're thinking, Jack replied. A legitimate collector who recognized talent when others, including my wife, chose to mock it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Eugene poked his head in. Sheriff's here, Jack. Earlier than expected. Mary's composure cracked. You can't do this. I need more time. Your 5 minutes are up, Jack said, moving to the door. And so is your time in this house. In the foyer, Sheriff Donovan stood reviewing the eviction notice with his deputy. He nodded to Jack. Mr. Vance. Papers seem in order. Thank you for coming, Sheriff, Jack said. The front door burst open, and Quinn rushed in, followed by Blair. What the hell is going on? He demanded. I've been getting calls all morning. The country club has suspended our membership. The contractors have walked off our beach house, and the bank is threatening to repossess my car. Jack turned to face his brother-in-law. Your financial house of cards is collapsing, Quinn. It was built on your father's money, which he doesn't have anymore. Quinn's face flushed dark red. This is your fault. No, Jack replied calmly. This is the consequence of years of living beyond your means, of gambling away your trust fund and lying to your wife about it. Blair's head snapped toward Quinn. What gambling? You told me that money went to investments. Quinn avoided her gaze. Not now, Blair. Sheriff Donovan cleared his throat. Folks, I'm here to execute this eviction notice. I need all Whitmore family members to begin vacating the premises. And go where? Mary demanded. Jack shrugged. That's not my concern anymore. Celeste appeared at the top of the grand staircase, a small suitcase in hand. Unlike the others, she seemed oddly composed. I've taken what matters, she said, descending slowly. The rest is just things. Jack watched her curiously. Of all the Whitmores, Celeste had always been the most difficult to read. Superficially warm, but capable of breathtaking cruelty. You knew this was coming, he realized aloud. You've been preparing. Celeste reached the bottom of the stairs. I suspected Randall's financial difficulties were worse than he admitted. I've maintained a separate account for years. She looked at her husband with cool detachment. A woman in my position needs security. Randall stared at his wife in shock. You knew? And you didn't tell me? Would you have listened? Celeste asked. You never listened to anyone, Randall. That's why we're standing here now. Jack checked his watch. The movers will begin work in 30 minutes. I suggest you all decide quickly what you want to take with you. Sheriff Donovan nodded to his deputy, who began placing official notices on the interior doors. You have until noon tomorrow to remove personal belongings, he announced. After that, anything remaining becomes property of the new owner. Jack turned to Eugene. Handle the rest. I've seen everything I need to see. As Jack walked toward the front door, Mary rushed after him. Jack, please. When am I supposed to go? He paused, looking back at the woman he had once loved. Perhaps the tennis coach has a spare room. The color drained from Mary's face as Jack walked out into the rain. Not looking back, WY noon. News of the Whitmore family's dramatic fall had spread through Charleston society. Jack's phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages from people suddenly eager to reconnect with the artist they'd previously dismissed. He ignored them all, focusing instead on setting up his new studio in Jude's building. He'd purchased the top-floor loft months earlier, preparing for this day. How's it going over at the mansion? Jude asked, helping Jack arrange his easels near the windows overlooking Charleston Harbor. Eugene says they're taking it about as well as expected, Jack replied. Randall tried to remove some artwork that wasn't his. The sheriff had to intervene. Jude shook his head. And the video? Online, Jack confirmed. Anonymous account, but it's spreading fast. Hashtag Whitmore Downfall is trending locally. Jude placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. You won. How does it feel? Jack paused, considering the question. Not like I expected. Not joy exactly. More like relief. Like putting down a heavy weight I've been carrying for years. His phone rang Eugene again. Jack answered on speaker. Just got word, Eugene said. Mary tried to file the divorce papers this morning, but there was a problem. What kind of problem? Jack asked. Seems someone beat her to it. Eugene replied, humor in his voice. Your filing hit the system at 9:01 a.m., citing infidelity with evidence attached. Hers didn't arrive until 10:30. How unfortunate for her, Jack said dryly. It gets better, Eugene continued. The judge assigned to the case is Harriman. You remember, you donated that painting to his charity auction last year? He's expedited your filing and frozen all joint assets pending review. Which means Mary can't access any accounts with your name on them. And since the prenup specified that infidelity forfeits all claims to marital assets, Jack smiled. She gets nothing. Less than nothing, Eugene corrected. She'll owe you legal fees when this is over. After ending the call, Jack moved to the balcony doors, looking out at the harbor. Across the water, he could just make out the roof of the Whitmore mansion his mansion now, though he had no intention of living there again. What will you do with the house? Jude asked, joining him. Donate it, Jack decided. The Charleston Arts Foundation needs a new headquarters. They can auction off whatever furnishings the Whitmores leave behind. Jude nodded approvingly. Fitting. And what about your art? Now that you don't need to hide your success anymore. Jack turned to the large canvas in the center of the studio, the massive portrait of the Whitmore mansion he'd been working on for months. It's time to go public, he said. I've been invited to showcase at the Matthews Gallery next month. They've agreed to feature my work exclusively. And the anonymous collector who's been buying your paintings all these years. Jude asked with a sly smile. Will they continue their support? Jack studied his friend curiously. I've never actually met them. All the transactions were handled through an art broker in New York. Jude's smile widened. Maybe it's time you did. Before Jack could respond, Jude walked to a hidden safe in the wall of his own loft. He entered a combination and removed a folder, bringing it back to Jack. "Open it," Jude urged. Inside, Jack found title certificates for 12 of his early paintings works that had disappeared from galleries years ago, purchased by the mysterious collector for increasingly impressive sums. "I don't understand," Jack said, looking up at his friend. 10 years ago, when you first met Mary, I saw what was happening," Jude explained. "I watched you fall for her, watched her family sink their claws into you. I knew they'd try to break you, make you doubt your talent." Realization dawned on Jack. "It was you. You're the collector." Jude nodded. "I couldn't stop you from marrying her, but I could make sure your work was valued properly. Every penny I made from my restoration business, I invested in you, in your art. But why keep it secret?" Jack asked. "Would you have accepted if you'd known?" Jude countered. "Besides, the mystery helped drive up the prices. The art world loves an enigma." Jack stared at the certificates in disbelief. "These are worth millions now. And that's just the beginning," Jude said. "Once your identity as the artist is revealed, they'll be worth even more. We can auction them at your gallery, opening a debut 10 years in the making." Jack embraced his friend, emotions overwhelming him. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll split the profits," Jude joked, returning the hug. Jack laughed. "Done. Partners." Partners. Jude agreed. 3 weeks later, Jack stood in the crowded Matthews Gallery, surrounded by Charleston's elite, many of the same people who had witnessed the Thanksgiving disaster. Now they fawned over him, praising artwork they'd previously dismissed, desperate to be associated with the city's rising star. His collection, titled Hidden in Plain Sight, featured paintings created during his years with the Whitmores. Each piece contained subtle references to the family's cruelty and his planned revenge, clues that no one had noticed until now. In the center of the main gallery hung the mansion portrait, dramatically lit to emphasize the cracks spreading through its foundation. Titled Family Values Auction Off, it had already attracted multiple offers, the highest reaching $2.8 million. "Quite a turnout," Eugene commented, joining Jack by the window. "Have you seen the guest list?" Jack shook his head. "I'll let the gallery handle all that." "Well, you might be interested to know that Quinn and Blair Whitmore tried to get in. Security turned them away." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Bold move. What are they doing these days?" "Quinn's working at a car dealership in Savannah," Eugene replied. "Blair filed for divorce last week. Apparently, his gambling debts were even worse than you thought. And Randall and Celeste separated. She's living with her sister in Atlanta. He's renting a small apartment downtown, trying to rebuild some consulting business. Not having much luck." Jack nodded, feeling no particular satisfaction at the news. "And Mary?" Eugene hesitated. "She's been persistent. Tried to contest the divorce. Tried to claim half your art sales. The judge shut her down completely. She's working at a department store in North Charleston. She'll land on her feet," Jack said. "Mary always does." The gallery owner approached, beaming. "Jack, the Jameson Foundation wants to purchase 3 pieces for their permanent collection. And the portrait, we've had a new offer at $3 million even." "Sold," Jack decided, "to whoever made the $3 million offer." "Excellent. I'll handle the paperwork." The owner hurried away. Jude appeared with 2 champagne flutes. Celebrating another sale? Jack accepted the glass. The mansion portrait. $3 million. "Not bad for a guy who paints stick figures," Jude said with a grin. They clinked glasses. Around them, the gallery buzzed with excitement as more red sold dots appeared beside Jack's paintings. "Have you decided what you're doing next?" Jude asked. Jack nodded. "I'm leaving Charleston. Too many ghosts here." "Where to?" "New York first, then maybe Paris. I've been offered a residency at a gallery there." Jude smiled. "Sounds perfect. When do we leave?" Jack asked. "You think I'm letting you tackle the international art scene alone?" Jude laughed. "Besides, someone needs to manage your business affairs. Might as well be the guy who discovered you." Jack grinned. "Partner." Later that evening, as the gallery began to empty, Jack stepped outside for a moment of quiet. Across the harbor, he could see the Whitmore mansion, now bearing a new sign. Future home of the Charleston Arts Foundation. His phone buzzed with a text from Eugene. Final divorce decree signed today. You are officially a free man. Jack smiled and pocketed the phone. The cool evening breeze carried the scent of the ocean, a promise of new horizons. 10 years of patience, planning, and pain had led to this moment of perfect victory. The Whitmores had tried to break him, to bend him to their will, to crush his spirit and his art. Instead, they had lost everything, while he had emerged stronger, wealthier, and finally free. Jude joined him outside, handing him a fresh glass of champagne. To new beginnings? Jack raised his glass to the twinkling lights of the city that had both embraced and rejected him. To endings that become beginnings. They clinked glasses as the sun set on Charleston and the Whitmore legacy, bathing everything in the golden light that Jack had so often captured in his paintings, the perfect final brushstroke to a masterpiece of revenge.